Hello everyone, welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host Liam, aka Bar. Today I am doing my weekly update. This is Liam's Leapings 13. So this is the update for October the 15th, 2022. So let's just go over basically, again, typical what I've read, a little bit on my writing, just some books I got, if I got any. I did get one this week, so so actually today it is the anniversary, as recording this, so the 14th. It is the anniversary of the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Morning Herald Godwinson over here. No, it's interesting. As that's like my favorite part of history, and that period itself is kind of depressing when I read it. It's just I don't know. It's this interesting. I wonder. It's one of those, what do they call it, watershed moments in history. Anyways, for those who know what I'm talking about, cool. For those who don't, I guess I won't explain it right now. So let me get on to what I read. So I continued to read Nightside the Long Sun. Last week, I had been reading it for about a week. I'm very busy, so I get very little of my physical reading in throughout the week sometimes. Especially if I'm making time for short stories, which I have been still this week. So I'm about not quite two-thirds of the way through Nightside the Long Sun, so I read less this week, and I am really enjoying it. It's not as engrossing, I feel like, as Book of the New Sun. For those who kept up to date with my reviews as far as Book of the New Sun goes, I read The Cloudy Conciliator in like 2 days, and and I read all the other books pretty quickly too. So now I am busier, admittedly, but still. And then so I also continued The Shadows of Dust, which I have digitally by Alec Hudson or something like that. This one's pretty decent. Last week I was barely into it at all. I was like 10%. Now I'm closer to 40%. I am enjoying it, actually. It's a little bit of a lull. I thought the beginning part was strong. I don't know if it's so strong right now, but it's picking back up a little bit. There's actually a part that was slightly creepy, and I was in a dark room trying to read it, and I was like, no, I'm not going to read this right now. I need to turn the light on or something, because I'm a wimp like that. It could turn out to not be that creepy at all, but okay. And then I read another novel I don't have physically. I actually ordered a copy because you can find them pretty cheap. It's a classic. This is She, A History of Adventure, just normally called She, by H. Rider Haggard. I really enjoyed this one. I listened to it. Wow, that was cool. She is a big influence, maybe not big influence, but it was a favorite of Tolkien's when he was younger. I'm not sure about She itself, but I know Haggard's writing was influential also on Robert E. Howard, the creator of Sword and Sorcery, father of Sword and Sorcery, and other writers, of course, as well. So that's my first book by Haggard. I actually own a couple others. I own two. Well, I own Eric Bright Eyes. Did he write the sequel to Eric Bright Eyes sequels? I don't know. I own Eric Bright Eyes in a sequel. I don't know if he wrote the sequel to it, but he's most famous for some other books like King Solomon's Mines or whatever. But I'll probably definitely be reading more of Haggard in the future, and She seems like one I'll probably have to reread, and there are sequels to it as well, so I think I'll probably read those at some point as well. I really enjoyed it. If you want a good romantic novel, classic adventure novel, one of the novels that kicked off the Lost World genre of sorts, then you need to read She. It is about two Englishmen essentially going to the heart of Africa and finding a lost kingdom. I actually did a poem a few months ago by Tolkien, which is called Kor in a City Lost and Dead, and Kor is the name of this civilization. Tolkien, is writing about She with that poem. So, and then I started reading. I am about 70% of the way through this one. I started reading an unpublished novel, so I'm not going to tell you who wrote it or what the title is. But it's not a very long novel, and it's almost sword and sorcery. It's it's kind of sword and sorcery. There's a few things that, I don't know, maybe make it not sword and sorcery, but it's pretty close. And it is buddies, so that kind of reminds me of Leiber's Fafhrd the Grey Mouser. they're different, of course. So, but it is entertaining. I am enjoying it. It's interesting actually because I'm reading it more of like as a slush reader, a slush editor in a sense. Um, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I'll just leave it there for now. So, but it's cool. It's a cool experience, a new experience for me. And then I read, funnily enough, I read the Vinland Saga. So I started this the day after Leif Erikson Day, which would have been the perfect day to read this. I started it on Columbus Day instead. But Vinland Sagas are about, the two sagas written about the Vikings in North America. And more specifically, not Greenland, North America. So there's two sagas in here. I think there's a saga of the Icelanders, the Greenlanders, which was better. I found was easier to read, and Eric the Red Saga. They're both really interesting. Taught me some things I didn't know. I was gonna read this in September with David Wiley. I think David got rid of his Discord. I haven't seen it in several months, so I haven't really talked to him about this. So, but it was fun. I mean, I got a copy of it because David was gonna read it. I was like, that sounds like something I could read. It's tiny. So I read the Saga of the Vinlanders, the Vinland Sagas rather, and then I read all of That Hideous Strength by C.S. Lewis, the final book in the Space Trilogy, Cosmic Trilogy. I do not even have my review out yet for Paralandra, which is book 2. Those will both come out at some point in the future. But I did enjoy this. I don't think I actually enjoyed it as much as Paralandra, though. I think it generally has a better reception than Paralandra. It's like twice the length of Paralandra. It was good, though. I did like it. It's kind of just not what I was expecting in some ways, because it leans more into dystopian sci-fi. So, and it's all set on Earth, too. The other ones aren't. Anyways, and then another one, I should have looked, because I think I do have a physical copy of this, but it's not in my stuff. It's in my wife's books, which admittedly there are way less of those. But I read Pride and Prejudice. I listened to it, actually, because it's free, at least on Hoggle it was. I don't know if it's just for members or what. Read by Rosamund Pike, actually, too. I think that's her name. Anyways, I don't really know actors and actresses' names that much. I'm not really a part of that cult thing. Yeah, it was decent. Actually, it was really similar to the 2005. I think it was 2005 movie. It was okay. It's interesting that you get the word romance tied to it because it's not very romantic in like the slightest. It is in the romance as a love story sense, but it's a domestic realism novel and not really it doesn't really feel like a romantic artistic period novel, if that's what I'm trying to say. So it's interesting. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. I thought it was okay. I think I'll probably do a review for that. That'll be interesting. So yeah, those are the books. So I finished 4, I continued 2, and I started 1 and I haven't finished yet. So as far as short stories go, I read Black Petals by Michael Moorcock. I think I'll probably try to find a picture of the Weird Tales issue it first appeared in way back in like 2008 or something like that. Excuse me, that was pretty good. I don't have a copy of that Weird Tales issue. I couldn't find one. I couldn't find the thing online either, but I did find it read online. There was a podcast that read it in 3 parts. Shared it on my Discord if you want it. Black Petals is one of the stories that is going to be one of the 3, I believe, that makes up The Citadel of Forgotten Myths, which is the newest Elric novel, which is coming out in December. 2 of the 3 are already published. The 3rd is way bigger, I think. The part that hasn't been published is the biggest chunk by far I've heard of the novel. I don't have it. I've tried to get an ARC. I can't get one. The other part is Red Pearls, actually in Swords and Dark Magic, which has stories by Steven Erikson and Gene Wolfe and like literally everyone you could ever want a story by. Michael Shea, Scott Lynch, Tanith Lee, Caitlin Kiernan, Joe Abercrombie, Greg Keyes, Robert Silverberg. I mean, anyways, there is one in here though by James Inga, I don't know how to say his name. KJ Parker, Garth Nix, Michael Moorcock though, he's got one in here. So Red Pearls, I'll probably read that this week, if not this week, soon, before Citadel Forgotten Myths comes out. But yeah, and then I read a untitled story from Cole, Exile of Atlantis. It was, of course, by Robert E. Howard. I think, let's see, it is called Riders Beyond the Sunrise in the Lynn Carter version when he finished it, because it's kind of unfinished. I thought it ended okay. I guess it is kind of anticlimactic. Very interesting where that story's going. You can tell it wasn't finished, I guess, though. I also read The Cat in the Skull in here as well, which was also another unreleased one. It also has, like, I think it's called Descartes. Is that her name? I feel like I'm forgetting her name. Something like that. Cat, though, so it's pretty interesting. I like that one a lot. Not as good as The Mirror of Tuzenthu. It's a little wonky. There's a few things I think he probably would have edited out if he had gotten it published. But I am looking forward to getting through more of this Cole stuff since it is Sword and Sorcery season. I don't know if I'm going to do Sword and Sorcery November this year. I should really figure that out if I am. I don't think I will. I always think like a Sword and Sorcery September thing would make more sense anyways. But I will definitely be celebrating the Day of Mine, actually. I'll probably have an extra video go up on Day of Mine, kind of like I did last year, which is a celebration of Sword and Sorcery, just so you're aware. That's October 23rd. And I also am doing a live stream that day celebrating, talking about Sword and Sorcery, so you can come watch. As it should be, unless plans change, it should be with Raph, Blue Tax, Oliver Brackenberry of So I'm Writing Novel Podcast, and New Edge Sword and Sorcery. He's the chief editor there. And then Nat20, Nathaniel Webb, I don't know. He is actually the chief editor on Windgraph, which is Cozy Fantasy Magazine, but he is also, if I remember correctly, one of the editors for New Edge Sword and Sorcery, just like Oliver is. I mentioned New Edge last week, and I am mentioning it again this week because I read another story in New Edge this week. I only read one more. It is The Ember Inside by Remco Van Straten and Angeline B. Adams. I think Straten is from the Netherlands. Adams is from Northern Ireland, I think. I could be misremembering that, but that's an interesting story. I don't know how I felt about it. It was definitely interesting. It has this weird middle part that like really made me uncomfortable, but like I don't know, it was interesting. It was a very interesting Sword and Sorcery story. It was cool in some ways, but I'm looking forward to the third story in New Edge because it is by David C. Smith, who is an author I like. One of my best books I read this year was Sometime Lofty Towers by David C. Smith. Then I read 2 stories in Old Moon Quarterly. I got this one a few months ago. You might remember I mentioned it in one of these earlier episodes of Liam's Leapings. I read the first 2 books, first 2 stories, A Town Called Trepidation by Paula Hammond, and then Stella Splendens by Graham Thomas Wilcox. That last one went into left field. I was not expecting to do what it did. I thought Stella Splendens was interesting, very interesting world building. It's like this weird alternate history where Egypt is still the power, even when the New World's being like colonized, and there's gunpowder and stuff. The writing style of it, I don't know if I was much of a fan of it. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely didn't feel like going and seeking out Miss Hammond's writing afterwards, but it was interesting to say the least. So, but that is the stuff I read. Of the books I got, I only got one, and this is a different one. So I got a D&D book. I don't get a lot of these anymore. I haven't played 5th edition since January, and it's not my preferred system for sure. If I knew AD&D better, I'd probably play that. But I played Castles and Crusades, which is essentially AD&D anyways. But I got this Out of the Abyss kind of for sentimental reasons. I have a few adventures. I've never played any of them, never ran any of these 5th edition adventures. I ran a 4th edition adventure in 5th edition. That was fun. It was brutal. It was awesome, actually. And it was kind of I worked it as a sequel of Out of the Abyss, because we got to a certain point in Out of the Abyss when I was playing with my friend's campaign last year. My buddy Wes was the DM, and we played, or initially started with people like my wife's cousin Eskel, and my brother-in-law Levi, and then Eskel moved, and then Levi eventually moved too, and then it was just Derek and Wes and I. We were like the solid 3 group, and eventually it got to a point where it was just like no reason to continue this, like because our characters didn't want to. It didn't make sense, we're all for like not making our characters do things that don't make any sense, right? So they got out of the Underdark, and we're like, yeah, we're not gonna go save people. We're not good people, or I guess they're not bad people. But so I started. They were Neverwinter, and so or near Neverwinter, and so we started running a Neverwinter 4th edition little module that I had, and I switched to being DM, and Wes took over a character that I had made, but I had not been playing. So it's kind of sentimental value. I don't know. Some of you might have seen on Discord. My buddy Wes actually passed away last month, and so That's the big reason I've been reading Cole's stories actually too, because I got him a Conan collection, and Cole I know is not Conan, but it's still Robbie Howard stuff. So I got that kind of for sentimental value because I was just remembering playing Out of the Abyss with my buddy Westy. I mean, so, but anyways, trying not to get emotional here. As far as writing goes, I did finish a story yesterday. Advent for 3 is what I've been calling it. It's really weird. I went through and edited it today, but it's probably gonna need more edits because I'm not really sure. Like, it's like so weird to the point where I'm like, is this bad? Like, or is it just weird? Because I mean, it's kind of clever in a sense, but at the same time, I feel like it's not, and it's just weird. I don't know. The character I have, who's the main character there, it's the 3rd story I've written with him as the main character. And the first story I ever wrote with this character I call it The Judgment of Thieves. It's not published. It got rejected from one magazine. It's been with another magazine for months because they're taking their time, which is fine. I understand the reason why, but it was very cathartic for me to write that. I was in a very bad place at the time when I was writing. I wrote it, and so I was like, I need to write this, and it's really short. It was 1,800 words, so about there or so, and it was very, it's an interesting story. And so, but I used the character. I started another story with him called Advent for 3 back in June, actually, when I found out Ed Greenwood's wife had died. I was very sad hearing that news because I had talked to Ed a few weeks earlier. I knew his wife was sick. And then, so I was like, okay, let me do a story that's like kind of about death or whatever, but with this weird character because he's weirdo. And then I didn't finish it because it was so weird. Like, I was like, I don't know how to finish this. This is too weird for me. And I keep on talking about it. I'm not trying to say it's good. It's probably bad. So don't get like excited about it at all, though I'm sure no one is anyways. But, and I wrote another story actually about the character later the next month in July. So I have 3 stories written about this character. I'd like to write more. I have a couple in mind already. So that one's gonna get more edits. My wife's gonna read it here soon. My dad's gonna read it. I kind of have someone that's gonna read my stories, but she hasn't gotten back on the first one yet. So, and then I keep on getting feedback from other people too. So, for example, the author of Baden Hill and Gerzel Anonymous read the 3rd story of this character, Arian. And he gave some good feedback actually. And then, so I also wrote another section for As Above, So Below, which is like a weird science fantasy kind of mixed thing going on there. So it's not that atypical. Maybe it's a little atypical for today, but I'm kind of actually playing with something like Elder Race, but not so much from Elder Race, more of inspired by different things, but by Adrian Tchaikovsky, that is. So anyways, that's the stuff that's going on this week, or last week, I guess. We'll see what this next week brings. I am still busy, but I should still have more videos for you. I guess a heads up, Wednesday's video is just going to be a buddy read announcement. I don't know if anyone actually wants to read it with me. Steve Donahue may. It sounds like he already read it. He's read it a lot, but that is going to be David Lindsay's A Voyage to Arcturus. I have it on this bookshelf behind me, actually. It is a sci-fi book from 1920, I believe, so pretty interesting sounding. I've had it for a couple of years, and I've been meaning to get to it, so I'm excited to finally get to it. It's not super long. It is standalone, of course, so that'll be the buddy read for November. I'll announce that Wednesday. Yeah, if anyone wants to read that, feel free to join there. Please do. So anyways, this has been Liam and Liam's Lyceum. What have you done this week, I guess? What have you read? What are you planning on doing this week? Tell me how you're doing. It might be nice to know. Anyways, I will catch you next time.